Okay, before we get started here on one of the last ties going in the rear mast of the ship, we're just doing a quick overview of the progress so far. Of course, been working on this for about a year, but I guess you could say 500 hours in there so far, but obviously it's hard to understand the true depth of all those hours when you can see this state that it's in. So we're working today on these it's just a little shot here of the back of my shed where I'm doing this project to the wood model ship. But the shot today is mainly about this tie that goes from these deadeyes mounted on the side of the ship up to the crow's nest in the rear mast on the ship. So I'm just going to lock the camera down on the stand there and do this one last tie. You can see I've already held 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the last one, 7. We're going to bring over that string. Just today I've done 3 of these from one side over to the other, and this is one of the little tricks I use. Get that close to where the deadeye is going to sit, and I park this deadeye onto the end of the tweezers, and of course this is a job that takes steady nerves, and with the tweezers holding the deadeye where the rope can wrap it, I can position the deadeye in that knot and see where I'd pull it tight there. It's going to be a little bit too low, so while the tweezers are holding that, I can adjust this knot up a little bit with this other pair of tweezers, because I'm going to put some stress on this rope once I pull this knot tight, and we want that thing to be snug. And of course there's always a fail and a pass, and when your fingers are 20 times bigger than your project, you have a lot more fails than you do passes. So once I get that rope to lay on that groove in the deadeye, get an idea where it's going to pull tight at, which is right there, then I can actually pull the tweezers out of the deadeye and pull that tight. So now that's one of the hard parts, is getting that deadeye to knot up in the positions that is the right height. You can see there, that'll be just right. So just a double granny knot, I'm going to use a little piece of frog tape to hold this tail up out of the way. And the reason I'm going to do that is so later on, when I get done putting the Deadeye on to this lower one, I'm going to knot up the top of this tail, similar to the way these are knotted up here. And that's the way it would have been in real life. There would have been a lot more rope in there, but for simplicity of construction. Now you can see this Deadeye in the bottom got tortured pretty bad, and I went back with the drill bit and tried to open it up. These are a lot larger Deadeyes here, and I haven't had to touch those, but these little ones, I was skeptical whether or not my rope would be able to feed through them, and I went in there with a drill bit and opened them up, and of course when I did that, I'm looking at a drill bit like this, and I've got some bigger and some smaller. They'll break real easy if you're not careful, but when I did that, it walked over into the center area and sort of ruined that Deadeye. And I could probably pop this out of there and put another new one in, but as you can imagine, that's going to take another 10 minutes. So here's a trick. Take some little bit of CA glue and just put a dab on the end there, and then very lightly pull on that, and what that does is it keeps the ends of that thread together, so when I go to stuff it through these little pinholes here, it doesn't fray up. So that one went in the front, came out the back. So I'm going to start, well, this is set like that. I'm going to start with this, go in the back, come out the front. And you can see how much I'm shaking. I'm an old man, I guess. Turned 60 this year, and drink too much coffee. But this is a really relaxing hobby I have. I do a lot of woodworking, and a lot of work around the house. I'm one of those jack of all trades, I guess you could say. So this will go down to the last there and tie off around the base, and then this tail here will come up through the last hole in the top and tie off around the top of that eye. So I've got that threaded. Now we're gonna bring this one around underneath the Deadeye in the back there. And I got two different tweezers here that are really good for both of these jobs, but this pair I like a little better than the other. You need that one when you got to get behind something and bring it out front. They both have their different purposes, but this one I use a little more than the other one. And of course I got like 10 pairs of these, all different shapes and sizes. So there's a nice little double granny slip around that base, and that's going to keep that tail from coming loose. Eventually we take this little nippers here and nip that off, and try to let that CA glue dry a little bit, and super glue before we go yanking too much, because we don't want that knot to come apart while we snug this up like these other ones. So of course it's really hard to see which rope to pull on, so I sort of just stick tweezers in there and grab one and pull it in two different directions until I see some movement. And you can see that this one, because that lower deadeye has got the holes messed up on it, this one doesn't look near as neat as some of these other ones do. But that's okay, because the detail overall when this ship is done is going to be so vast that you're not going to see little things like that. If you do, then you're a shipbuilder too, and you know what it's like. So now this last hole here that I got to get through, instead of doing the CA glue, I've been fairly lucky with just a little dab of moisture. I use the CA glue on the other end because I'm going through these holes several times, and if I try to do that with just the moisture, the end of the string comes all apart. Now I'm not making any progress. So as you can see there, it takes a little steady hand to drive that baby through, because that hole is almost it's like 0.2 millimeters bigger than the string is. So here I'm going to do a little slip neck, and that slip neck is not going to hold the way it is now, so I have to actually push this through the middle and do a complete loop wrap around the outside of this thing, and I'm going to pull it a little snug before I tie the last you can see there I'm yanking on it pretty hard because I want this thing to be tight around that larger yard cable. I don't think you call it a cable, it's definitely not a string, but a yard rope in the day would have been a very large rope at the time. On a real ship, that rope was probably bigger than your thumb. Oh, see there? That's a good example of the knot that was tied actually blew up. So what I'm going to do is see where the end is there. Okay, the end is there. So I'm going to take a little more of this thread. I'm going to need to tie a couple more up here anyway. A little shorter piece. And I'm going to tie a new choker on that area. And then we'll just cut off that excess when we get done with a couple knots here. And after you do this knot tying several times, it becomes a little quicker. Now, I'm going to use that one in a minute, but I want to put this another dab on here. Keep that from flying apart. CA glue dries really quick, you know, within a minute or two. I don't use activator because I probably should, but it gets all over the place. And I have quite a selection of different kinds of glues to choose from. This is one of the convenient ones because of the tip, and I don't use very much at a time, so that tube will last for a couple days before I need to use another one. So here's the last knot. And we just cinch this at the same height as the other ones there. And of course, once you jerk around a little bit, you're done. And you know, this thread is forgiving in the fact that I can cut it off and start over again, other than the aggravation of having to all that time you spent and then having to throw it away can be discouraging. So try to cut these as close as you can without blowing that knot up. And I'll use some of these pieces of scrap for other knots in other places. So now I'll pull this little tab of tape off here if I can, and then oh, that baby's on there good. That thing is giving me a frog tape fight. You gotta be careful now, I don't cut my main rope going up there. Bring this down and whack it off right above that knot, and voila. So this side's done and the other side across from it is done. And then before I go on to the next area, which would be up here or over here, I'm gonna start running those little ladder knots across here that you climb on when you go up to the crow's nest, and that'll take some time too. But as you can see, there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and probably about 3-4 hours a day, maybe more sometimes. So the last couple of days to do this. That little piece of pyrite there, I'm trying to drill that out so I can put a chain through there and make a necklace. And a concrete drill bit started cutting it pretty good, but it was tearing the rock up. So I'm going to have to try to grind through it with a little grinding drill bit and a Dremel very carefully without destroying the rock. That's why I put it up here so I don't lose it, because it's easy to lose stuff around here when it's so little. So that's all for today, and hope you enjoyed.